I did another one that I had an offer. We're writing an offer on a $1.2 million property. I did this whole analysis because he was like, where's the 100? He's kind of an examiner. He's like, where's the $100 per square foot difference? What am I missing here? Let me show you. So basically what I did was I went in and showed him, all right, these are the houses that you're saying are the $100 difference and then this house, but these houses are not in the condition that this house is in. All right, today we're going to be talking about leads again. And wouldn't you love to get one of these in your inbox, somebody asking you for a cash offer on a property? This is about, as good as an outbound opportunity comes. So we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to talk about how to generate leads from your own database, how to create your database. We're going to get into a lot of this stuff to help you guys out, creating opportunities for you to go out and list and help people buy property. Let's get into it.
I love this, man. This is so wild. I mean, just to be able to see this in your inbox, how exciting is that? Just somebody reaching out. I think that's the absolute pinnacle goal for every real estate agent, is to wake up in the morning, open up their email, and besides garbage and spam, to see something like this, that someone's actually raising their hand to say, please contact me, I'm interested. So how does this even come about?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So this is my email, this is my Gmail. And as you said, a really cool thing to have somebody say, hey, I'd like a cash offer on my property, right? Whether you might have some investors out there, or this might be someone that wants to not get a cash offer, actually maybe sell their property retail. That aside, so where did it come from? Well, let's take a look. So we've mentioned having a CRM, very, very important. To do this from your notepad, I did it for many years. Wouldn't suggest it, but it does work. But hey, you got great companies out there that provide CRMs and so forth. Now, this CRM is not, you asked me this earlier, Eddie. This is like Brivity or Sync or Boomtown, right? These are CRMs unto themselves that don't have associations with a particular brokerage. This is Sierra. So we've been using Sierra for a very long time. We've gone through 6 CRMs, and we used Sierra before we came back to Sierra. So that tells you a lot, because it's not easy to set up CRMs, but that all aside. So let's go back. You can see the history here. So this goes back, it keeps everything in of like, where did this person come from? Was it a circle prospect, so forth? This was imported from when we were actually using Brivity. All right. So you can see here that our ISA at the time was nurturing this person. They did create a listing appointment. I ended up listing this. So these are all the calls that have been made. So it shows you how much flow I've been in with this person. We gave them that ISA a little bonus for actually warming this person up. And now they were set actually on a search. So now they're getting properties that are out there. This continues to nurture them. This shows the chain of all the emails that were sent. We've mentioned, Eddie, right? You and I have mentioned BombBomb before, so you can put BombBomb videos into the CRM. So you can see that they opened it, they received it. Well, they received it and then they opened it. Pretty cool. This shows that actual cash offer reach out. So what is that? So this comes from a program that's not the cheapest. It's about $1,000 a month. But again, this comes through and it gives you like a lead score, Eddie, right? So what's their potential, the algorithm that they have, whatever they have that says this person has a higher propensity than another to sell. This is what it told them their house is worth, the algorithm, similar to like a Zillow or something like that. Scrubs MLS and all that. They did it again. So they came in on the 20th. They did it 3:35, and then a minute later they did another one. And actually their lead score went up because they did it twice. Then it shows, that I made calls. You can listen to these calls and so forth. So you can put this person in as a buyer, as a seller, their phone number, their email address. This is where you put in their address, when they were registered and so forth and that kind of stuff. So
now this is contact information that they've provided.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did list this person before, it didn't work out, but I've stayed in touch and so forth. So that's the CRM. So how was this person? This person came through as a PPC lead. All right. So this is Brevity. Generated that back in the day. This was a PPC lead that I ended up listing the property. So PPC works, guys. It works.
So the PPC generated the lead. It dropped into your Brevity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
that's an automatic process,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
And then does it automatically start to nurture, or does it click off any kind of nurturing process, or do you have to go in there after you're alerted that there's a new person in there?
From the CRM itself, you'd have to set up some kind of drip campaign so you can set up different plans to put them on action plans. I know I didn't have them on any action plans, but you can create your own action plans, sellers, buyers, long-term nurture, so forth.
Okay. So is this better suited then? Because I know you briefly mentioned the expense. Is this better suited for a larger team or someone who has the capital that's already doing quite a bit of business to invest in? Or what do you say to someone who's maybe brand new and is staring at their, everyone's told them by the time, as they're getting their license that, if we're talking about a relatively new agent, everyone's telling them, you got to create your database, you got to create your database, got to create your database. But what does that actually mean? And what if you're staring at a legal pad that's got, 18 names and phone numbers and addresses on? Is this the right tool to be using right away? Or where should I start if I'm that agent?
Okay, let's say you're that agent. You got 18 people in a notepad. Would I suggest starting with Sierra? Probably not. If you're an individual agent, I would say probably not. I would say start with something, again, if you're with EXP or another that gives you a CRM, we have KV Core and Lofty. I would get KV Core or Lofty, take a look at either one of them, see which interface kind of works best for your eye. And then if you have the 18 on a notepad, AI isn't quite at the point where you can scan your notepad and it puts it all into the CRM. So you're going to have to actually add them. So you would go over here and say add lead, right? And, put their name, email address, their phone number. And then if you do have an address, put their address in here. Also, it'll tell you, well, what do you want to tell are you a buyer agent, seller agent? Are they a buyer lead, seller lead, status? There's different, or different, like, new lead is basically nobody's contacted them. If you've contacted or you've tried to contact them once, they go into what's called qualify, right? So just giving you an idea of how to collate these. Those people on the notepad, those would all be, I guess, qualify, or some of them would be active. I'm actively working with them. Prime is somebody who is basically writing offers. So you can see what I'm saying here. I don't know if you can see what I'm saying here, but like you can collate all these. So if, say, you have out of your 18 on the notepad, 5 of them are like, hey, I'm in the car with them. Those are your prime leads. So then what you can do is you can go and create a call list, right? I want to call all my prime people today, right? So then it'll put them in a call list. You're not going to have to go in and individually do them. Does that answer your question, Eddie?
No, yeah, absolutely. That does, because you got to start somewhere, and obviously the first step is to get them off paper and get them somewhere digitally so that you can start to manipulate them easier and actually take action on them and organize them, put in notes. And if you have a sophisticated system, whether it's this or another one, that you can actually set automations to start to happen.
Right.
So now I'm that agent, Alex, that has got 18 people, and I have a little bit of a marketing budget available to me. Where, how am I going to deploy that money, or what's the best way to deploy that money to start? What kind of prospecting? Or I know you mentioned earlier in our conversation about circle prospecting, where do I start? And kind of, even before I start typing on the keyboard, what am I doing up in here in my head in terms of organizing that thought so I can launch something? What am I determining there?
Okay. Yeah. We'll go there in a second. I would say, just to tidy up the last point that you made or your question, you're going to have everybody out there, I would imagine, has an email address, and you have contacts in your Gmail, in your Hotmail, wherever you keep them. You can do an export of taking your contacts and putting them into this CRM. So just as a side note to that, you get your 18 on a notepad, great, but you also have more contacts. I guarantee you have people in your Gmail or Hotmail or whatever. Load them in and then collate them. So then you go through and go, okay, they're a buyer, they're a seller. I know this guy, I know this person, I know their address, put their address in. So that if and when you get something like Fellow or some of the other programs maybe that we're going to discuss, that you can have that automation going on in the background. So let's say you do that. So you do your notepad, you do your database from people in Gmail. Now there's different ways to go here. We've talked about PPC before. Last week we talked about Google My Business. Last week we talked about Facebook leads. Those are all opportunities to spend some money that you talked about there to put in. I would offer a couple different ways to go. One would be with Mojo or RedX. So with those, you can do something called circle prospecting. So you can find an address that you say it's an open house. You're going to do an open house this weekend. You want to call the neighbors around that open house. So you do that address, do a radius around it, and it will pull out, the people that are in that radius. And then you can pump them in to your export them into this database or Lofty or KV Core, and you can call them. Or with the triple line dialer, so this is a single line dialer. So this has a single line dialer built into it, which you can get through. You can probably make, it depends on how many conversations you have, right? So in an hour, with 3 to 5 probably conversations, you can call 60 to 70 people with a single line. Triple line in an hour, depending on how many conversations you have, because if you have a long 15, 20-minute conversation with somebody, obviously you're not going to call as many people. But you can rifle through 150, 200 in an hour, Eddie. You're probably not going to have as many conversations as you would from something where they were warm leads that came in as a PPC or a Zillow or something. They're going to probably have maybe a higher propensity to have conversations. But yeah. So,
hey, Alex, let me ask you something. If for the people that are listening and watching and hearing, 100 plus conversations a day, sometimes that could be a little daunting. Can I be a successful real estate agent if I am honed in, diligent, and every day I'm making 15 to 20 phone calls and having conversations from whatever conversations come out of those 15 or 20 phone calls that I'm making 6 days a week, let's call it. Will I be successful at the end, at the end of the month? Will I have success in that? Will I be a successful agent if I kept that? Or do I really need to do 100? Or at 100, am I, because I'm feeding a team?
yeah. That's kind of a loaded question because what I mean by that is like it depends.
Well, I want people to get their head wrapped around the volume.
Yeah.
And do I need to do 100, or if I'm really good and I'm just doing 10, is that enough? Especially for the people that are hearing it for the first time. Because you and I know what 100 means and what that looks like, what that feels like, what it requires, what the end result is.
Yeah.
What could I potentially have if I'm just getting started and I haven't built a habit of talking to or having systems for 100 dials a day? Is that what's necessary, mandatory for me to put food on the table?
The part that's loaded in that is the skill set.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right? Like some people could say, I talked to 25 people today. It's like, okay, what did those conversations look like? Right? I probably talk to more like personally now after 20 years, and most of the stuff is going to the team. I'm probably personally only talking to maybe 3 to 5 people a day. Maybe. Sometimes I don't. Now, if I was a new agent, I would say, I'm doing actually a presentation as a side note this Friday, Eddie, on something called the Kruger-Dunning effect. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So the Kruger-Dunning effect is it's a way to frame your development in a certain field. What do I mean by that? So you just got your real estate license. Let's talk with that, right? You're excited. Right? I'm going to go, I passed the test. I'm doing, I'm going to make this money and it's going to be this or whatever you think it's going to be. Then it's what you think it's going to be. And then what Eddie and I know it's going to be, especially in this market right now. So what happens, the Kruger-Dunning effect is you get into something, you get really excited and you dive in. Then you realize, this is the Kruger-Dunning effect, you realize how much you don't know and what you thought you knew and what you thought it was going to be. And that excitement around that starts to wane as you realize how little you know. Then you go into something what's called the valley of despair. And we want to help you get through the valley of despair. This is what Eddie and I are here trying to do. The only way to get out of the valley of despair is to raise your competence, right, in that given field. So this is what you're talking about, Eddie. How many people do I need to call? Well, that's why I stuttered a little bit, or like that's a loaded question, because if you don't have skills, your valley of despair is going to be a really long, prolonged duration, right? Because now you're trying to figure it out on your own, which if you're a very resolute kind of person like Eddie and I were, because back in the day we didn't have this stuff, we just had to figure it out, right, Eddie? So as you work your way through the valley of despair and hopefully you build your skills up, whether it's, hey, systems, conversations, an actual program that you go by each day and you stick to, you'll start to come out of valley of despair as your competence goes up in the systems, in your conversations, come into role play to get your conversations better. Then you start to raise your competence, and as your competence goes up, your confidence goes up. So that's the last part of it. And then you get into mastery, right? So as your competence goes up, you get more confident. You guys out there, can you resonate with this? Like as you've gotten better at something, your confidence goes up. You feel better about it. You're more prone to do it. Whereas if something that you don't like or you're not good at, again, that's that valley of despair. You want to get through that. That's why you need good mentors. That's why you align with people that have been where you aren't so that you can get through that valley of despair and move on. So I know that was a long...
No, that was perfect. That's exactly what I wanted you to double click into essentially, because I just, yes, we're talking about CRMs and numbers and data and dialers and things like that, but it's like, what does it mean? Like, what does it really take? Is that the way? But, to your point, the sharper your skill is, the more effective you're going to be. And for someone who's listening to it for the first time, it's like 100. What does that even mean or feel like? So
yeah.
You do need to go through it, and all that to say that it ties in with the practice that you're doing, the mentorship that you have around you, the commitment you make to your business every single day. It does get, the number goes from 100 to 50 to 25 to 20 to 50 because you're just so good at it.
Yeah.
And you're so proficient at it, and you've got all the systems and dialed in that that is really making an impact. So
yeah, the number, this is a good ratio to think about. Your number of dials and conversations needs to be higher in the beginning. And then as your competence gets better and as you're nurturing people more, the calls will go down, the conversations will go down as your appointments go up, right? Because now I'm on appointments, whether it's listings or buyers. I'm not going to have as much time dedicated to finding people that are ready, willing, and able to go out and buy or sell. So that will happen over time, but again, not everybody's patient. But we're here to let you know, hey, it does require some patience. You're building a business, you're building new skills. This takes some time, but having a CRM. So this is another good example of, hey, just as an example, right? Like our agents on the team. So maybe you're a team leader out there, but even if you're not, this is still for that individual agent. What do I need to do today? Like who should I call today? Well, if you put people as they come in on, say these are all sphere, but these aren't all sphere. Like this is sign calls, sphere of influence, right? It tells you what your categories are. And you could collate this too. You could say, I only want to call my sphere of influence, right? This one came from YouTube, right? This was my guy. This is home light, right? So anyways, my point is you go up here to your tasks. Who do I need to call today? Don't have to think about it. Go into tasks. You got 22 here. I pull this guy up, right? I can call him directly right from my phone here, not even actually dialing his number in. I can go over here, Eddie, click on this, and I can add to a call list, or I could call via my device or the browser, right? So I call him, I talk to him, I write a note, hey, he's this far out, whatever. And then I readjust this over here, edit my task, and I'm going to call him now, 2 months from now, right? So I'll put him in like that, update the task. I don't need to call this guy, so I'm actually doing that. I keep kind of pushing him forward sometimes. But anyway, so now this guy, I don't lose him in my database of like, oh, what happened to that person? Oh, no, I've got him in here. Once he's in and he's got a task, not going to deviate from making those calls each day, or at least moving them along. Hey, I don't need to talk to this guy, whatever. Second thing I wanted to bring up here is even as an individual agent, again, you can create call lists. You can do this within, I believe, KV Core and Lofty. Call lists, our operations manager sets up for the agents each day. All right, we're calling primes today. So she will collate. Well, actually, we have a VA now doing this. So it's even not the weeds of, this is very kind of, I don't want to use the word tedious, but to do this for 6 agents for an operations manager who has a higher level skill set, you don't want them kind of doing these mundane tasks. And AI agents will probably figure this out within a year or so. So anyways, I come in here, just press start, call via browser, and I just call, and it just starts calling people. And this is a good friend of mine that actually gave me a great referral last year for a $3.2 million sale I had. So I want to, reach out to him and say hello. Oh, wait, I don't want to call him now. I want to call him. Okay. But anyway, here's a good example. So I'm glad I actually just did that. So boom, the call drops. What happened? I call attempt, didn't answer, or it was a wrong number, opted out. I left a message. I actually talked to him, and here's what we talked about. Right. So I'm actually glad I just did that, because it gives you an idea of how intuitive this is. Like the call dropped, reminding you, hey, what actually happened? So then the next time when I go in and I call this person, they'll be down here in the history of what our call was about and so forth. Right. And then I could write some of the little notes here as a side. So I don't know if I got lost in your question.
No, no, not at all. No, I love this because it's just so comprehensive, and it's a great glimpse as to how somebody could potentially use a tool. But one thing that you mentioned that I think is very important is although we're talking about maybe a beginner agent or a starter agent or early in your career agent, you touched on some clients right there, that are relationships by now. What's wonderful about this industry is that it does morph into and can certainly be a wonderfully successful financially and sustainable business when you've nurtured so clients. So after you've done it for so many years, these people that were once a cold lead that you brought in to your CRM are now friends of yours, that whenever they think of real estate, they think of you without question. And so the phone then starts to ring to you, or they start to recommend you. And that is where we see a lot of longevity. That's where we even see agents exit out of their businesses and actually sell their databases because there's so much value in them, right? And so it's not always this hunting and hunting and hunting and hunting and hunting and hunting. Clearly, if you're going to build a team and you've got to create more leads and more opportunities for people that are working, with you and underneath you, as a team structure, that you maybe need to feed that beast, so to speak. But if you're just a solo agent and you're able to properly nurture, transact, and continue to nurture then the relationship. So not just from the first transaction, but well beyond, your database becomes incredibly valuable and can certainly be filtered out of, you can start to and that's what I did later in my career, is I filtered out people that I just wasn't driving with. We just weren't really connecting anymore. We weren't really in communication. They went off to do something completely different. I didn't see in any meaningful way how I could serve them anytime soon. So I cleared that out. And then what was left was this gold mine of people that knew, liked, and trusted me to the ends of the earth. And so that's where what I believe is a nice, successful business ends up leading to.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears to a different way. So let's talk about how can we create opportunities. You started to allude to it because you said, so you talked about circle prospecting and the fact that, we could decide, based on an event, an area, an open house, I think is the example you gave. If there's an open house, let me draw a circle on the map and let everyone in that circle know that we're having this open house, just as your icebreaker to speak to them and let them know that this is happening. And then maybe obviously start asking some qualifying questions or genuinely invite them to the open house and maybe be able to have a conversation with them then. So that's great. But if you're also starting from scratch, or you're trying to maybe break into a new area, and you don't have much of a database inside that area, or it's a neighborhood you'd love to really become more proficient at, or a price point or a lifestyle that you're really kind of after. I recently, and I think we mentioned about it before, Alex, is my alignment with PropStream. And PropStream is a real estate data company. And I really got excited because they are incredibly masterful at garnering data, not only having the most robust data from not only the MLS, but also public records, tax records, et cetera, but it's in their filtering system. So if I, as an agent, wanted to, again, let's say it could be a circle prospecting type of an example where I said, maybe if I'm newer and I'm even newer to the area, but I want to prospect my neighborhood because I'm very intimately familiar with my subdivision and the houses and the construction and the age and the quality, all of these things. And I've decided that that's the area that I want to focus on. That's what it allows you to do. So let me get into that screen real quick.
Yeah, because we're actually looking at this. There's a couple different programs that I was looking at. One was DataFlick, and I'm probably because of our alignment and also your deep understanding of PropStream, we're going to integrate this most likely within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So stay tuned out there, guys, for our actual experience with this. I have a massive amount of trust in Eddie. He's shown me the program a couple different times. We've looked at other programs, comparing it and so forth. But we mentioned this last week. We're right now, and Eddie and I are talking about it off camera here, that we're working on these Facebook leads right now. So it's like, be careful, guys, out there about adding a bunch of different things at the same time. Like, add one at a time, because what Eddie's about to show you here is very compelling, and it's like, whoa, that looks awesome. But if you're already working on something, maybe you want to just shelf this a little bit. Wait for maybe our experience and how we can get show you how to get better at it. But we're working on these Facebook leads right now, so I'm excited to kind of see. We talked about this a little bit off before. You want to show us?
Absolutely, yeah. So let me bring it up on the screen. So this is the PropStream platform, and I'll just go back here. I'll clear this out. And essentially, this is the first screen you're greeted with when you log into the platform. And very easy. You can obviously, move around on the map like you're used to on Google. But let's just say you wanted to zero in on a particular area. Let's just go into here into Stewart. And I'll go ahead and type in Stewart just to see it, so you can all see it kind of populate. And just because as an aside, we're not an affiliate. This is an arrangement that I have, or an alignment that I have with this company right now, but it's not anything to where, if you click a link, you get a discount, or if I get bucks back. It's not that at all. To Alex's point is, after so many years of being in this business, you start to see very clearly what some of these tools can really do for you and how you can align them into your business where it can actually make a huge impact. And so one of the questions is obviously, Eddie, and I'm sure Alex, you've gotten this before, is, where do I start? How can I get some leads? How do I don't have much of a database. So this is a great platform to fill that database. And so what I've done here is just and we'll just go over it kind of quick. And maybe if there's interest, if you all are interested in what Alex has shown, what I'm about to show here with PropStream, just leave it in the comments. And, we can always do a deeper dive into the platforms if you have interest in them, or you're actually considering them, or maybe you're already working inside them and want a little bit more information. Definitely leave those questions in the comments. But this is PropStream, and all I did was put in Stuart, Florida, which is an area near us, and immediately populates with, you'll see here on the side, 40,000 properties, unique properties. So it's basically picking up everything. And then underneath, you'll see the filtering system, which is what's currently on the MLS, what's in pre-foreclosure, auctions, bank-owned, cash buyers, liens, vacant. And the moment you click on I think this one's really super interesting. If you wanted to have a conversation with people that have high equity in their property, this is determining, either they own it free and clear, or they just have a large percentage of ownership underneath them, and they have no mortgages or liens on them. So that's super interesting. But I think more interesting than this is really the filtering system. I think this is the power, the secret power of PropStream, because in here is where you have so much access to dial this in. So it's one thing to pull up everyone's information, but let's just say you wanted to focus on, let's just say senior owners. Let's say you wanted to focus on senior owners, obviously 55 and over, and you wanted to create a campaign around them to maybe court their business, because senior owners, what do they usually have? Typically have higher equity or own their properties outright. Senior owners, sometimes if they're in a larger house, maybe a 2-story house or 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, doesn't apply to everyone, of course, but a lot of times they like to downsize, right? We see that quite often. And so that's another filtering that we could do. So we could actually click in senior owners, and then we could go to different various property details, residential. Obviously, we would select go into condo town, or let's go, because if we talk about the large homeowner, let's go with single family. And then PropStream Intelligence allows you to look at the system is actually looking at past photos or recent photos that are on the MLS and gives it a condition score. So you have an idea of what the condition of the property is, which is incredibly fabulous. MLS, whether it's currently on the market or not, because again, this is also searching properties that are in tax records. So all properties, you can go active, pending, contingent, or leave it blank for right now. Pre-foreclosure. So you want to add that filter in. We could add pre-foreclosure filter into this type of owner avatar. And then if they're owner occupied as well, how long have they owned it? Is it owned by an individual or corporation? Are they out of state, out of the country? What was the last sale? I mean, it just goes on and on, Alex, in terms of the filtering and the power. So all we're doing is with all this filtering is we're refining a list. And the reason why I love refining lists is, so I only did, I think, senior owner, so it's 5170. But the reason why I love refining lists is that it gives you the opportunity to be and this is where we've had success in our business, is crafting the exact message for that exact person. What are they going through? What are they dealing with? What are they potentially, so if I was to focus on these senior owners for a moment, I may pen an email or a postcard or a phone conversation that says, we've seen you've owned your home. We've had several areas. This is another search you could have done too, or maybe it's a search that you do in conjunction with maybe some of the systems that you use, Alex. Like, we know that this person over here is having an open house, or we know that this person next to you sold their house and they got X amount of dollars. Were you thinking of possibly selling? And you don't have to obviously talk about what filtering systems you use to get a hold of them or reach out to them, but you certainly are probably a lot closer in that conversation to understanding who they are and providing value. And what's wonderful about this way of building your business as a real estate, so we pull out and we're sitting there as a real estate agent having this conversation, is that the likelihood of them having a similar conversation with anyone else, or that the phone rang that day, is also very unlikely. And so, when the fruit is low hanging and everybody knows that that's an opportunity, they're getting bombarded with phone calls and messages and stuff. And so it's much harder to break through sometimes. But if you're being really diligent, and this is a proactive attempt at being diligent, proactive, and then taking this information, and I'll show you real quick again. Let's just go back to the results here. I'll show you, if you're being diligent, and these are the contacts, let's just say this is the list that was exported. So you have the ability to export that list of ownership and then run it through a skip tracing. What is skip tracing? For those of you that don't know, skip tracing is the ability to find emails and phone numbers. And so let's just pretend for a moment that I skip traced that list of 55 and over. This would be the results.
Okay.
And so now I'm able to have these conversations with the people that I've identified that I want to speak to. I understand who they are and what they come from, and what the possibility is of maybe them wanting to move, buy or sell, or any of those things. And now I've got their contact information in front of me. And from this point, we can use it with some marketing features that are already built into PropStream, but you can also export this. So if you're much more of a fan of Alex, of your system, then you can absolutely export them out of PropStream and import them into yours, and then use them through your marketing efforts or that whatever you're used to doing. And what's nice about this is it not only gives you phone numbers, but also tells you do not call. And I know we paused earlier about the DNC list, right?
Mm.
We're talking about that because that's such an important thing. And all brokerages have different rules around it. But the do not call list, for it to be flagged, is great, because then you can decide what's right for you and your business as to whether you make those calls to those particular numbers. Not all of these are DNC numbers, but some of them are. And then you've got email addresses and physical addresses, of course, which were already part of it. But right here, you export and you're off to the races. And you're penning emails and you're making phone calls and you're setting up your dialer and you're enriching your dialer with all of these conversations and all these contacts. And in that comes back to what you were saying before, Alex, is you're refining your skills. You're having these conversations and you're having niche conversations, which I think is a great, not talked about enough piece of education when it comes to real estate, is honing in on a type of conversation. I think is really powerful. If you become very masterful at speaking to 55 and over clients, and you're having these conversations over and over, you just become very, very proficient at it. And you hear more of their drawbacks, their complaints, their concerns, and you create solutions around that. And for the next conversation, you get so much more powerful. So I think this type of niching down is incredibly helpful. And this is just another tool that lets you do it.
Yeah. What I would say, so let's talk about that new agent out there. Is this something, Eddie, you would say for that new agent they dive into, or would you suggest, because the cost is, and we always want to be conscious of cost, the cost is going to be higher than, say, like a RedX or Mojo. And the difference to me, like, you could do some filters, pretty good filtering, but this is next level of refinement, that word you use, like refinement of that list. That's really what you're paying for with something like a PropStream over a Mojo. Is that accurate?
It's 100% accurate. And that's why I'm so excited about it, is because what I just mentioned was, I've always been the kind of person that would like to focus in on a type of person,
Yeah.
so I can become very proficient in those conversations. And so that I'm just the go-to person for that thing, whatever it is, that market, that area, that price point, that type of product, whatever it might be, that type of customer that has a certain type of pain point. When we have down markets, pre-foreclosures and foreclosures are conversations that become more prevalent. And so, that is also very powerful. So yes, the power of PropStream is that all that filtering, it's getting all of the data and then the ability to sort it through so that you can reach those people. And it means that you create 2 or 3 or 4 pockets of people that you reach out to on a regular basis. And how wonderful to be able to organize then your CRM, either inside this platform or off the platform, to talk to those 3 or 4 type of avatars.
So would you suggest, I mean, personally, I have my opinion. If you were new and you want to kind of cut your teeth on making calls to people that are not inbound, PPC or the Google or Zillow, These are kind of more of an outbound. I would say these are, I'll use them in the more of a cold lead, right? But
Mm-hmm.
because you're collating these, that you do know, hey, these people have high equity, these people have a divorce going on or whatever. So it's a little bit more of a not just shot in the dark, I guess, if you will. But I don't know. I would offer to anybody out there that's thinking about kind of going this route, I would probably dip your feet in with Mojo or RedX first. Try that out, and I don't like using that word try. Do that for a couple of months so that you can cut your teeth on building those skills. I'd also offer come into our role play room so that you can get some feedback and you can get some, hey, I've done this before. We have people that have made tens of thousands of calls in the morning role play, and you can learn so much of like, say it like this, don't say it like that, offer this, don't offer that. That, you know, I guess I posed it to you as a question and then stepped on you and answered the question myself. But I would start with Mojo or and and or RedX personally. What do you think about that?
Yeah, yes, I think that that's probably a smart way to go. You know, the other combo that I was thinking about too, if this kind of resonates with you, is obviously having a CRM. That's foundational. It doesn't matter where you're getting it, but obviously if you're inside of EXP, you were able to get access to a couple of great platforms that you can start, you know, that are already included, and then feed that CRM because
Mm.
if you're staring at that blank CRM, find a way, whether it's the way Alex is recommending. With the dialer or with PropStream or some program like that. PropStream's pretty um, accessible in that it's about just to get started. It's $100 a month, and the next platform I think is like 250. So a
Really?
month. So it's
Okay.
really, yeah. So you can get in entry level at about 100 at the $100 price point, and you're in, and you're getting data.
That doesn't include the triple line though.
It does not include any kind of
Okay, so
dialer.
that's more okay.
Correct, correct.
So
This
you
is
could be
just
all in with
data.
so you could take these, put them into Mojo. So with Mojo and or RedX and PropStream under $500, you could be rolling.
Easy breezy. And I think if you were to ask most agents that are getting started or early in their career, I think $500 threshold is a very common one that
Yeah.
I'm able to, you know, put in, commit $500 a month to build my business. Um, if not, you may need to consider a different business because you do need to put some money into it. This is your business. You're investing. And so, yeah, I think if you put that combination together, Alex, I think you nailed it. That would be fantastic. And again, very attainable. And everything I just showed you, all the filtering, the searching capability, all that is included in that first tier plan. What isn't included is the skip tracing. So I mean, some of the skip tracing stuff, but it's either 10 or 12 cents per person that skip trace. And if it doesn't find a result, it doesn't charge you. So it's still very, very reasonable. And again, if you're starting with a community that's, you know, 400 homes in the community, or let's just say, for example, it's $40. Did I do that right? $40.
Yeah, I was just going to take out the calculator, but I think
Yeah. 400 times 10 cents is $40. So, I mean, again, inconsequential. And now I've got the contact information and now I can actually make phone calls or have the dialer have immediately launch Mojo because I've imported all that contact in there. And now I'm having conversations with the people that I want to talk to because I did the proper filtering in PropStream or whatever system you use. I mean, that's a plan. To me, that's a plan. I'm actually getting excited just hearing it. It's
yeah.
like I would slide this over to a brand new agent and say, do this. And then let's meet on Tuesday. Let's talk about what the results were. How did your conversations go? Where were the drop off points? Next time, say this. And you're meeting with me or with Alex every Tuesday.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that. So like going back a little bit to that valley of despair, you're in excitement. And then you're going to get into this and you're going to get some sticking points. Like even like, how do I export? How do I do this? Well, you want someone like Eddie or, you know, myself, probably not me, actually. I'm not the best guy to help you with that. Eddie is, but I can help you with how are your calls going? You know, what kind of systems you got going on? We can help you. So Eddie and I can both help you with this. Cause again, that valley of despair, you're going to get excited. You can look at this stuff. Oh my God, this is the answer. Yeah, it's part of the answer. The other part of the answer is what do those calls look like? Again, back to my stumbling of like how many calls should you make? Like it's going to depend. It's going to depend. And again, you're going to make less calls as your competence goes up. I just that hope that sinks in. Like, it takes some time, and it can be you can bring that time frame down if you raise your skills up and you get your systems down. But that value to spare definitely will go longer if you don't. Just want to punctuate that.
This is, I mean, that's kind of where, because if we end this with how do you start? I mean, that's how you start. This is how you start. Identifying where my list is, importing them into your CRM, and then you've created a campaign to reach out. You're reaching out whether you include a dialer on day one or you don't. That's entirely up to you. But then if you start loading it up with another tool that's starting to fill your pipeline with good data, actionable data, which is not just the people that you want to talk to, but their contact information so you can actually talk to them. And then it's just the sharpening of the skills, and getting on there and committing to those 40, 50, 100 calls a day. And then, yes, you institute a dialer or you bring that in or whatever it is. But that's after the fact is where are my people? Who are my people? Where are they? And then how am I adding more to those people? And am I getting on the phone and having those conversations?
Yeah.
And that's where your business starts. And to what we alluded earlier is once that gets going and you're genuinely a really good real estate agent and you're doing the thing, you're doing all the things that come after that. You're more signs in the ground, more phone calls coming in organically from the business that you're doing, more pats on the back and shakes hands and hugs from the people at the closing table. All of that stuff compounds on itself. And then that's really your real asset. And you can almost say goodbye to a lot of these processes before, because you can just be spending your time in your CRM because you've got 434 people that you've done business with that could not be happier with you. And they're going to continue to bring you business. And that I've seen firsthand can be the fountain for the rest of your career.
I like two pieces that you brought up there, where I'm going to add a little piece. I love that you boiled that down. So under 500, we're in with a CRM, we're in with a list. $40 get you 400 leads that are relatively targeted leads. I can tell you, I'll say this, there's a listing in there. There's a listing in 400 people. So for under $500, you could get this list. Again, now you got to get your skills up. So come into role play or what have you to get your skills up. But there's a listing in those 400. I can guarantee that. I 100% guarantee that. Maybe not in the first 30 days or something like that. But if you cultivate them, to your point, Eddie, you put them in the tasks, you put them on some drips, you text, you call. Another thing we didn't mention here, which has been and I've mentioned it in other episodes, one of the most powerful things that I have used is BombBomb, and kind of showing people with a screen share. I mean, let me show you something real quick here, man. Like
now, we're going to turn this into a 2-hour podcast. Now you get me excited about video because that's one of the
I
things.
just want to show you. So I just want to show the audience something here real quick. And maybe I'm kind of tooting my own horn here.
No, I love it.
That's okay.
Sure.
So this is a gentleman that came in yesterday from a referral network that found us through Google My Business,
which we talked about in the previous episode. So make sure you go back and watch that one.
Correct. So Google My Business brought this person in. They have a referral network. This person, True Parity. You might be interested in it. They use an algorithm, Eddie, whatever. They match people with great agents. Well, basically, they're going through Google. So, anyways, my point here is I sent this BombBomb video, and let me show you this, like, just to give the audience of like, what do I actually do? Or say, oh, use BombBomb. Okay, let me give you an example of what I actually do. So I'm showing this person the macro picture first of like what's going on with inventory, right? And I'm just telling him the story because he and I had a brief conversation, and I was like, let me show you. So I went into Trend Graphics, and this shows them and so forth. But anyways, the email I got back was obviously powerful enough that this person wrote me this. I was truly impressed with the real estate data you provided. The factual backing of the information will certainly aid in making better decisions. Like, dude, right? Like, and I found the recent price drop to be more reasonable than I initially expected. My concern was that your price recommendation would come in the 500. Da, da, da. My first concern, blah 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 blah. Thank you again for the introduction. Let's continue to stay in touch. Hopefully, we can make something work near future that makes things a little bit better. He's not in a place where he's kind of screwed. But anyways, that aside, I just wanted to show you guys that this really works. Doing things like the video, like Eddie and I are talking about, showing people, it is so powerful. I did another one that I had an offer. We're writing an offer on a $1.2 million property. I did this whole analysis because he was like, where's the 100? He's kind of an examiner. He's like, where's the $100 per square foot difference? What am I missing here? Let me show you. So basically what I did was I went in and showed him, all right, these are the houses that you're saying are the $100 difference, and then this house, but these houses are not in the condition that this house is in. Look at the photos. Here, this is an updated kitchen. This is an updated bathroom. This is updated flooring. They have impact glass, new roof, right? So what would it take to make these houses look like this house? Just as an example. And what did that do? He wrote an offer. Because he was like, I don't know. I'm like, let me show you. So now you can make, like this guy said, the factual backing of all the information will certainly aid in making better decisions. So this is what I'm talking about with BombBomb, of not just sending somebody a market analysis and they're trying to figure out, like we can read, well, hopefully you can look at a market analysis and kind of go, okay, I get it. But you send that to the consumer, if you don't walk them through that, it's just kind of numbers on a screen. It doesn't have as much impact of making them go, oh, I understand. Okay, great. I feel like I can move forward. So just wanted to kind of punctuate that with the different tools. This is part of the skill set. This is part of the valley of despair. Why can't I get these people to write an offer? Again, there's all these places in the valley of despair where you don't know how to get through that. And that's where we come in to help you go, you're stuck right here. How do you get them? How do you move them forward?
Well, I hope we shared some things that help people move forward, like an actual plan to get started, regardless of where you are, and that it's reasonable. And we put some numbers behind it, both financial, but also, numbers in terms of activity, what you need to be doing, right? And then you shared great insight with creating video content to not only cement the point home with a particular prospect, but also to express very clearly that you're very proficient at what you do, that you understand this. And it leaves no, especially in a market where we're seeing that a lot of agents have left the industry, and there's not a lot of agents that are doing any kind of transactions, even one transaction. It really is important for the consumer that we serve to reach the most proficient of us. And when you do that, you're demonstrating that you are very proficient at what you do, and that you're one of the few percentage that are actually doing business and know what they're talking about. So again, we talked about how do we get people, how do we start to have conversations to begin with, and we just kind of really only tiptoed with your video example as to how do we then convince them that we are the right person for the job. And then, then it obviously goes into how do we seal the deal? How do we close the deal? How do we market that property, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think, we touched on really the getting started part today. And I hope that it was really impactful for everybody.
Yeah, that was fun, Eddie. Hey, if you guys have any questions, drop them below. We'd love to hear your questions. And hey, please, if you like this content, subscribe to the channel. And we will see you next week with some more value for you guys out there. Be well, my friend.
We'll see you on the next one, buddy. Thanks again.